And please welcome our moderator, Mr. Denis Tanguay, representing the Efficiency Valuation Organization. And our panelists include Mr. Alexander Ablaza from Philippines, Mr. David Daniel, Willdan Energy Solutions from USA, and Ms. Esra Tombak from Ministry of Environment, Turkey, and Mr. Jayanta Chaudhuri, Alliance for the Energy Efficient Economy from India. Please welcome them to the stage.
I think we have an hour and 15 minutes, but okay, well, this is going to be the most interesting panel of the day because it's right after lunch and it's siesta time and everybody is jet-lagged, so it's going to be fully animated. So our first presenter will be Alex Ablaza. So Alex, let's start right away.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Denis. Well, it's been a long journey. While my role is Asia-Pacific wide, let me just zero in on the Philippines and just talk about the journey of the ESCO market there. So the ESCO market has been existing since the mid-90s, and this was as a result of many demand-side management programs that were foreign-assisted at that time. We had an energy efficiency and conservation law at that time, but the focus was more on energy conservation. The problem with the 1980 law is that it only had a 5-year validity. And this was only because government was having or causing a knee-jerk reaction to an oil embargo, so a tightening of oil supply because of some Middle East tensions at that time. So the law lapsed in 1985. There was no ESCO provision in the law. It was extended another 5 years, and then it lapsed again in 1990. And then for 29 long years, from 1990 to 2019, we just slid back to a voluntary energy efficiency market regime or situation. It took so many refilings in Congress to get the new Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act. But there's a silver lining to that 29-year wait. We had government understand that ESCOs and third-party investments had to be made in energy efficiency. We had government, it took us the 29 years to teach and educate government that fiscal incentives will have to be given to make ESCOs and third-party investments in energy efficiency more commercially viable so that they could attract private capital into this new infrastructure asset class called energy efficiency. So lo and behold, in 2019, the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act is passed, and I won't talk about the entire law, but the features of the law that could impact the ESCO market. The first is, it sets obligations to commercial, industrial, and transport establishments. Every business consuming at least 50,001 kilowatt hours in fuel electricity now inherit a long list of obligations, not only mandatory energy audits, but also improving your efficiency index. If you have a building, it's a building energy index. If you are industry, then it's an energy utilization index, and so forth and so on. So it now drives, it creates a strong market demand. The second is that it strengthens the certification of ESCO professionals, energy managers, energy auditors, and that's imperative. You need the human resources if you want to transform the market. The third is it grants tax-based fiscal incentives. And this is the good news. Way ahead of renewable energy, the energy efficiency sector, we remove foreign ownership restrictions. That means you don't need 60% local ownership to attract foreign equity into Even ESCOs. ESCOs can be 100% foreign-owned in the Philippines, ahead of other neighboring countries at that time. So the attraction of foreign investments was a key feature of that law. And last, it's creating innovative procurement modalities, enabling ESCO service procurement in the government sector, which was not allowed in the former procurement law, because ESCO contracts are neither pure goods nor pure services. And that's why many procurement laws in many developing countries do not readily know how to treat, let's say, ESCO equipment assets that would be turned over later at the end of the contract period. But it's also a law that is now looking and exploring on how to make public-private partnership transactions work in joint venture agreements also with state-owned entities. The ESCO sector is growing. We now have 20+% annual growth in number of ESCOs. We have over 17% in growth in annual ESCO investments. And the last point I'd like to make is that only last year, we see a sudden surge in demand for cooling as a service, where a large property developer is divesting of all its cooling assets and asking third-party owners, especially ESCOs, to own the equipment, operate, maintain, and supply chilled water to all tenants of shopping malls, hotels, and other private developments. So that's a new development in the Philippine market, mainstreaming cooling as a service.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Right on time. Now I invite David to give us an update on the U.S. market programs. David?
Great, thank you. Yep, I happen to be the token American here. So just, a lot of great questions and comments the last 24 hours, so I rewrote a lot of this over lunch. Certainly happy to be here. I think I'm also the second, probably the largest holder of my carbon footprint getting here, so I apologize, Quick Carbon, for that in advance. So I serve on the U.S. National Board of ESCOs, and I'm also a Senior Vice President at Willdan Energy Solutions, providing ESCO services, among other things, for utility programs and customers all over North America, a little bit international. I've been doing energy projects, design build projects for about 20 years now, and a lot of that consists of international work, so I'm really excited to see a lot of familiar faces. And again, I did something as an early young architect over 20 years ago. This is somewhat of a dream come true, where everyone's really taking a serious stance on sustainability and the clean energy transition. So I'm really excited to be here. So the U.S. ESCO market is pivoting heavily, has been for the last decade or so, especially post-pandemic, which I know a lot of other countries are seeing. The energy and climate business is drawing up a lot of startup companies, which is good and bad, but a lot of, I think, companies are starting businesses for the wrong reasons. It's financially driven profits, not to make a change, and that's negatively impacting. There's been a lot of comments made today about trust and open book nature of what we do as ESCOs, and we're getting a lot of really bad press about standing behind performance guarantees, being transparent with our financials, and showing the public and private sectors that we're not all there just to make money. We're actually there to do good for the long term, not just have a one-year M&V guarantee plan, but go a lot longer than that and stand behind our promises. So all that being said, that negative press the last 5 or some odd years has resulted in a lot of legislature change, not all the way up to the federal government, but also down into the state level across the 50 states. Not of all which have energy programs at that level, but nonetheless, it's making states realize they need to start holding ESCOs a lot more accountable to goals and guarantees that they are making. The U.S. energy, or the ESCO market, has completed roughly $7 billion annually in the ESPC world the last 5 years, mostly around the MUSH market. That doesn't even include private sector. That's kind of harder to quantify. So that's just recorded data through NAESCO and others. So since 1990, ESCOs in the US have completed over $75 billion in recorded ESPC projects and created over 1 million jobs directly associated with ESCOs, which is very exciting, and delivered over $80 billion in recorded guaranteed energy savings, or utility savings, I should say. So of our markets, K through 12 school districts are about 35% of that market, at least over the last 5 years, or about $2 billion a year. State and local governments is about 25%, and federal is hovering around 18%. And the reason I wanted to highlight federal is just a lot of the political changes happening the last 2 terms is resulting in kind of some wholesaling of assets and buildings throughout the federal government. So they're selling a lot of their commercial buildings and in some cases Navy, Army bases, and reprioritizing them or repurposing them. So the ESCO market in the federal space is starting to dwindle and drop. So I think that percentage is going to go down, where a lot of super ESCOs and other ESCOs have been heavily relying on the federal market to stay in business. Healthcare, higher education, commercial are those remaining markets that we're trying to get more engaged, but it's education, trust, and confidence that we need to continue to drive and educate customers on our model, and why design, build, performance contracting is real with the right partner, of course. So that's also very important. A lot of the challenges that we're having constantly overcoming. I know a lot of us in the room here are day-to-day tasked with re-education, education, and talking about why the ESCO model does in fact work and how it works. So last 5 years, again, just having a lot of challenges coming out of the pandemic with qualified personnel, going back to work, going back to offices, especially in engineering, developers. Supply chain challenges to the United States have been really hard. And then the shift to very focused the last, I guess, more of a decade on electrification, decarbonization across the United States has also caused good and bad challenges in the industry, which I'll touch on here in a sec. So the ESCO, to probably all of us, means a different thing in the country and region that we're operating in, and a lot what we're seeing across the United States is ESCOs are starting to be required in a sense, or customers really want to see deeper infrastructure improvements and helping them fix deferred maintenance, especially at school districts, providing EV infrastructure deployment, whether it's a school district that wants to deploy electric buses, it's not just commercial vehicles that we're all driving around, police vehicles, all that. So microgrids for resiliency, all that you guys probably see on all the news about the wildfires and all that. So resiliency and microgrids, especially in California, is a significance. So we're having to shift a lot of our focuses and expertise on that. I'll skip along here. One of the things that we're seeing, as I mentioned earlier, related to decarbonizing being a high priority, is it's contradictory to a lot of building codes that we see state to state, and some that are mandated by the International Building Code or California building codes that we're held to. So we are specific to doing energy performance contracts in some states. We're required to do a 15, 20 year, sometimes less payback project, but we're also being asked to decarbonize facilities. So trying to do that in a cost feasible way and demonstrate the financial feasibility has been very challenging, and again, contradictory to what's code's calling for, but state mandates are calling us to decarbonize, which puts us over a 15-year payback. It's very expensive. Electricity is very expensive in most parts of the United States. So your payback will go from a 15-year payback to 40. So going through very deep life cycle cost analysis is really important. Talking about long-term benefits, monetizing carbon has been a very big topic with the Department of Energy the last several years, and how to qualify that, quantify that in a realistic way. So that's all another pretty big hurdle. So real quick, a lot of questions again that have been coming, more of what is going on with the the political environment in the United States. I'm sure you guys all see the real news and fake news daily, and it's certainly hard to keep up with even stateside. So the Department of Energy, President Trump has been in office just over 100 days, and just within 24 hours of him taking office, he issued a little over 70 executive orders, several of which impacted the ESCO industry immediately right out the gate. And it's painful, but it's also we're just trying to catch up and understand why some of these decisions are made, because customers are coming back to us asking why these things are happening. We don't have answers. It seems like a lot of our contacts at the DOE and other federal agencies don't have answers, which is hard to tell customers and give them confidence. So those executive orders has resulted in, previous administration had over $100 billion invested in infrastructure and energy improvements through the form of grants, funding programs for United States entities, and those executive orders in some of those programs have actually revoked them. So my organization actually has 2 school district projects that we were complete with 2 investment grade audits, ready to start construction, and the Department of Energy had to halt $30 million of grant money that was appropriated in writing to these poor school districts that had no money to get projects done. So how are we as ESCOs supposed to go out there and tell the story of why things are happening? It's been very challenging because a lot of folks really just don't know the future of what's going to happen. So the Department of Energy already has lost over 3,500 employees, which is extremely sad, and we understand, again, the inefficiencies that are happening at the government level. I think all governments and just companies in general experience inefficiencies. But it's also, again, it's rapid fire happening, and I don't think a lot of long-term effects are being thought about. It's not just my opinion. And also the more recent thing is the Department of Education is also being significantly cut. That one makes a lot more sense, is because I think the federal government is trying to put the state, local governments a little bit more committed to their local educational systems, because every state differs so significantly. So that one makes a lot more sense, and that's one I think a lot of us ESCOs can get a lot more behind. So I'll try to wrap up here. So the other thing, Willdan, my company is pretty different. Is a big reason I came to Willdan, I guess 9 years ago, is how much work we do for utilities across the United States. So there's 55,000 electric, gas, and water utilities around the United States, and these are organizations that could truly and do truly help ESCOs and customers get projects done. They not only provide incentives and rebates and free money, but they're now starting to offer things like on-bill financing and creative ways to operationally fund projects. So a project that has a 10-year payback, the utility will pre-fund the project, the construction, the development, put it on their utility bill, and they'll pay it back over 10 years, and becomes an operational cost. And so we're working heavily with utilities coast to coast to educate them on these types of programs, because it's a creative way that can make projects look more financially feasible, depending on the goals of customers. It's not just going out and going after private capital or issuing bonds and all that fun stuff. So utility programs are becoming a bigger player for ESCOs, and I'm happy to say we're on the forefront of that. The last 2 points I wanted to make is, again, like I said earlier, just the clean energy transition, moving to decarbonize. The amount of EV deployment across the United States is significant. I know a lot of other countries are seeing that. Just from a couple quick factoids, 2020, we were about $1.8 million in commercial passenger EVs deployed. 2022, we went to 3.2 million. And 2024, we are hitting just over $5.5 million. So what that means is this significant amount of grid strain that is happening across the United States, which I know isn't just specific to the United States, is becoming a problem. Where's this power going to come from? Is it clean power? Luckily we've got a lot of desert in areas where we're doing solar fields and solar farms, but it's also just getting the transmission lines there, and kind of reshifting where the electrical draws on the nodes are, substations in big cities like New York City is a big customer of ours, where we're focusing on how to get rid of this problem or solve this problem. Data centers is the other big one. Data centers are just a huge impact to probably a lot of our countries that we're operating businesses in, and I did not create, or I did not use artificial intelligence for this presentation, but it's artificial intelligence, it's our phones where we're taking pictures, cloud storage, all these things are sitting in data centers. And I try to tell my wife, like, you've got 25,000 photos and videos on your phone. That's all sitting in the cloud. Your little cellular device isn't holding it on your hard drive, and that's sitting in a data center somewhere that's expelling hot air into the atmosphere and all that. So data centers is a big problem. Well, it's a good thing, but it's a problem due to this electrification movement we're trying to do. So we've got about 50% of the world's large commercial data centers on state soil that we're having to overcome as well. So in closing, I think I rambled on, which I'm good at. We have a lot of good and bad changes happening and versatility around the United States right now. Obviously tariffs, which I believe will come up in a few minutes. Many customers right now, unfortunately, are sitting on the sidelines because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with their projects. ESCOs don't know what to tell them. And we're starting to kind of get into a holding pattern depending on the sector that we're working in. So the commitment to clean energy remains very exciting and certainly important. But with these political changes, it's getting harder in ways to meet these ambitious global goals, not just the U.S. goals. So digging deeper for our customers has become mandatory for us ESCOs. And I think I was talking to somebody earlier over lunch about, I think it's this new next 5 years of the ESCO world is really going to start weeding out ESCOs that have been traditionally focusing on low-hanging fruit, don't do a lot of deep engineering analysis, life cycle cost analysis. They don't have the capabilities. You just can't go out there and find LED projects that easy anymore, and simple, retro commissioning projects. So you've actually got to start using your brains and do some deep engineering work to actually get these projects penciled and moved forward. So, but yeah, we're in a pivot mode still for the last 10 years in a large nutshell.
Great. Thanks, David. And now we move to Ezra Tambak, who will talk to us about energy efficiency renovation of public buildings here in Turkey.
Good afternoon to everyone. It is really a great pleasure to be here all with you. Turkey has an ambition goal to reach zero emissions up to 2053. In order to reach this goal, the government tries to accelerate the path to energy efficiency, and ESCO contracts are one of the tools in this path. First, in 2007, with the energy efficiency law, ESCO contracts were mentioned, and in 2020, 2021, and 2022, respectively, the necessary supplementary documents for the sector to implement these ESCO contracts were introduced. I will not go into detail to this ESCO contract because in the morning our department manager from the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Energy and Energy, Bilal Bey, talk about this ESCO contract legislation. Now I want to present you what we have done in the energy efficiency sector, especially in the public buildings. Beginning from 2019, we are implementing an energy efficiency in public buildings project. And one of the, it is a World Bank finance project, and one of the component of this project was in order to accelerate the ESCO market, develop ESCO market with simplified ESCO pilots. And our first pilot implemented in a school building. It is about 12 1,000 square meters. And there is 3 buildings in this school complex. First, we had a preliminary audit report in order to find out what are the potential, what is the potential in this building, what can we do, what energy efficiency measures we can implement. And we can see that there is 80% potential in this building if we implement the right energy efficiency measures. And we announce a design-build contract, and the evaluations were based on the highest net present value with minimum 50% saving, with minimum 15 years of payback period. When we had the tender, there was only one bid ensuring the requirements. Although in the project, our budget for the ESCO contracts, $30 million, only we could do one sample, one pilot, because we have to cancel the other ones, and we see that there are some barriers. I will mention these later. It was different for the sector. It was a design-build contract. It was a quite different approach for the Turkish construction sector, as this was not a conventional contract. The lowest bids are evaluated. This was a low cost, achievable energy savings were evaluated in this bid. And the payment schedule was different from the conventional contracts, construction works contracts. 70% of the payments were after the implementation of the energy efficiency measures, and 30% were on performance-based. Some of the payments were paid after the performance test report, and some of the payments were done after 1 year after having the measurement verification report. What we achieved at the end? We achieved 70% of energy saving in this building. The heating demand lowered with the insulation, envelope insulation applied. And the energy performance class of these buildings rise to A class from E. Also, the comfort conditions in the school building improved. On the roof, we have PV panels that is compensating the building electricity need, and the school become nearly zero emission building. You can see we changed all the heating system. We replaced the heating system. You can see the before and after. There is a heat pump application. It is supported by the PV panels to decrease the natural gas consumption. You can see the comfort conditions in the school has changed with large windows. And when we look at the measurement verification report, the savings are more than we expected. Yes, why there was only one bid? We have to cancel the other bids because it was, unfortunately, we have the tenders when there was this pandemic, and there was some uncertainty in the economic conditions. The inflation rate in Turkey is changing. It is really high, and it is a new sector for the construction sector. The energy efficiency companies, we are not totally saying ESCO companies, but in Turkey, energy efficiency companies are, when you look, they are not financially strong. And they need to, in order to enter these bids, they need to be financially strong, and they need to have some, they need to comply with the requirements that is in the tender documents. So they need to have a joint venture consortium with the construction companies, and there is an uncertainty with the construction companies and these energy efficiency companies. They have to handle the whole building. For example, we had a workshop to ask the sector why they are not interested in this ESCO issue, why they are not entering the bids. They were saying that, okay, we can have the ESCO only for the lighting. Let's one of us come and only change the heating. But in the building, it is really different. In the industry, maybe you can have the energy efficiency measure for only one process. But in the building, you have to think integrated way. You have to think that if you are doing the insulation, the capacity of the boiler should be changed. So everything you have to think the cross factors in the building. So one measure you are applying is affecting the other measure. So in an integrated way, all the disciplines must work together. Also, there is the guarantee of the energy efficiency savings. So it is not only related with the company who is implementing these energy efficiency measures. Also, the building users have a great effect on this result. If they are not using the building in an efficient way, if they are not using, for example, we are implementing the PV panels, but if they are not checking if the PV panels are working or not, if something going wrong, then you cannot have the savings that you calculated at the end. Of course, we are not. We have still hope in our project, in our energy efficiency project, and we will continue to develop this ESCO scheme in the sector. For example, one of our contract was performance-based. I mean, not in a start from, we are starting step by step in a way. We are trying to urge the sector to enter this ESCO issue step by step. For example, one contract is performance-based. 7% of this contract value will be cost will be paid by after if the performance are achieved. So we are trying to accelerate the sector by these pilot examples, and we are now working on one of the other building in a governorship building, about 40,000 square meters, and to have it again have the energy efficiency measures renovation with the ESCO contract. Yes.
Thank you.
And one more, I guess I can say, in this energy efficiency project, Turkey, with all our partners, stakeholders, we really reach a good result. Up to now, since 2019, we have renovated 72 buildings, nearly 400 buildings, energy efficiency way, and we see that we can reach in an average of 40% of savings in these buildings, and this is showing that there is a real potential in the public sector. When you think that there are about 400,000 public buildings in Turkey, there is a huge, this is a huge amount. So there is a potential, and we, as a government, we try to use this potential till the end.
Thank you, Ezra. Now we move to Jayanta Chowdhury,
Thank you,
representing our training partner in India, by the way, who will talk to us about ESCO enabling regulation in India.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start with a quote, and that's kind of my favorite. It's not my own, but that India is a land of mouth-watering opportunities and eye-watering challenges. So I think almost every business that you do in India, anything is, holds true with this particular quote. And ESCO is no different. But I think from a ESCO market enablement perspective, I think it started in 2001. I think it was the cornerstone was the Energy Conservation Act. That was done. Of course, it established the nodal agency, which is the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. That continues to drive the major engagement, and of course, we partner with them across. They mandated energy audits, and more importantly, the Act empowered the government to develop building codes, appliances standards, and most important, the ESCO market. The BEE, of course, I think does a couple of very credible things as far as ESCO is concerned is accreditation. We spoke in the morning. They do that, ABC categories. They have developed the framework for EPC. The standardization of the M&V protocol, they of course have their own. We promote the IPM-VP as a part of working with Denis. And of course, they also promote schemes that are the incentivization schemes like PAT, ECBC and DSM. PAT is Perform, Achieve and Trade. There are like 12 cycles, 1,200 designated consumers that have already happened over the 7 PAT cycles since 2012. $10 billion of investment and about 24 million tons of oil equivalent annual energy savings. What we are also seeing is, of course, from a Super ESCO perspective, we have EESL. The Energy Efficiency Services Limited. They're famous worldwide for their Ujala program, which was the LED program. But again, right now they're more focused on demand aggregation. They're working on BLDC fans, smart meters, amongst others. I think some of the positive developments over the last couple of years has been the amendment to this Act in 2022, the Energy Conservation Act, which primarily now allows for the development of the Indian carbon market. I think that's a major development that the entire sector is really looking at, and monetization and the PAT scheme will kind of flow into the carbon markets, with kind of equivalent credits. And of course, trading possibility. Till now, it was a voluntary market and quite messy in India, to be honest. We did discuss about the partial risk guarantee fund. Of course, from institutional mechanism, we also have SIDBI, REDA, funding from World Bank, ADB, and GIZ does a lot of the capacity building over there. So the PRGF has been successful. I think about 81 energy projects. They kind of did about $135 million and significant saving of almost 385 gigawatts hour per year, I think, as a part of the program. But if you really see the scale and scope of India, 81 programs, it probably needs to be 10x to make any sense. In India, anything that is not followed by 8 zeros really doesn't make sense. With due respect to my friends from Kosovo and Mauritius, they're very different scales at which it makes news in India. But I think another good thing, other than this, of course, there are discussions how to improve and increase this. But there's something very interesting. So we have a federal structure. So we have the state designated agencies at the state level who are also responsible for implementation of energy efficiency policies. They, of course, get funding from the government. They have targets on energy and emissions reduction. But there's something called the State Energy Conservation Fund, which is a fund that the state governments have. And we're just doing a pilot in one of the states where we are using this fund to actually act as a guarantee for some public programs and projects, ESCO projects, at that state. Now, it's the first time we are doing that. I think if this works out well, I think it has a good future. But that's a fund that is parked with almost every state for energy conservation, energy efficiency programs. Again, there's also from a government side, I think, a lot of positive things, especially after the G20 presidency, where we kind of announced doubling of energy efficiency. So there's a lot of, I would say, awareness, interest, and of course, the push. An example, BE did an energy audit of 100 government buildings. We kind of studied about 69 of them, and I think a simple study showed that $10 million per year of saving is possible only from those 69 buildings that we studied. So of course, they released an RFP for upgradation. But the challenge, of course, is while ESCO programs have been kind of used in many of the government public buildings, not to the scale and level that is required. It's still the procurement policies are a major issues. There's example in the industry side. I think the minimum standards are still at IE2. Whereas, we have been pushing for at least the motors to be in IE4, at least. I mean, forget about IE5, but no. And they always go in with L1, you can do audit, it's free of cost. The large MNCs are always interested, but the business will go to whoever is actually L1, and as long as they're meeting the criteria. And my colleague did mention that I think discoms have been quite active, the same in India as well, through various demand-side management program, mandatory audits. But over the recent time, I think there's a lot of focus on smart meters across India. So the rooftop solar is something that's picked up significantly in India, and again, that's being also supported. And from e-mobility, ESL and the group has done a lot, bulk procurement of e-buses. That's been one major success, and of course the e-mobility otherwise through FAME and other program, it has incentivized for the adoption of EVs in India. A quick, probably an update of the private sector. BE has about anywhere, the number varies, about 145 to 150 private sector ESCOs, a lot of them MNCs, but a lot of them the smaller companies, and of course a lot of startups in that space, which is very positive. But the difficulty is that most of them are very small, less than 25 people. The ticket size is less than $300,000, and most avoid financing projects for obvious reasons that we have discussed during the day. But the good thing is that a lot of them are actually now moving into a full stack support. We are talking about they're supporting the supply side, the demand side, and also the digitalization. I think that's a positive sign that it's not cherry picking one or just working slap solar. That's a problem in India that people think that just slap solar and you're done. Energy efficiency is done. They don't really work on that because they're getting cheap solar. It's actually detrimental to the energy efficiency movement in a major way in India. But from a regulatory perspective, of course, the BRSR, from an ESG reporting perspective, I think that's putting a lot of pressure on the private sector, and I think a lot of action is also being pushed because of that. It's called Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting, primarily for all listed companies. So that is actually pushing organizations to have their own goals, and of course, ESCO is very important over there. That's primarily it, and I think the challenges, of course, I think there's nothing new, but as I said, the solar deployment is like a two-edged sword. It's creating some issues on adoption and deployment. From I would say, credit rating, so just give you an example, CRISIL is one of the largest agencies in India that kind of rates the agencies, and I think since 2008, they're the largest, and they claim that they have the largest number, and that's just 52 ESCOs. So you can imagine that's also a challenge, and again, that reflects into the high cost of funding, the other challenges that are there. India also is a little unique because agriculture sector, if you really see ESCO, it's primarily industry, it's buildings, and agriculture, and transportation, of course. But the private sector is working in these three major areas, and agriculture is highly subsidized. Free energy, that puts pressure on the industries and commercial use, so that has its own challenges. But I think, I don't want to repeat the challenges, but I think one thing that's also hurting is most of the policies, especially on the building side, it's all voluntary, both for commercial and residential. So that's not really helping the cause. Unless you can actually have certain mandatory norms, disclosure of the building performance, those are not happening. There's no benchmarking. So that's, I think, something that we would love to see happen. The expectations on some of the ESCO programs are very high, unrealistic. But again, it comes with low confidence, and it's a kind of a bundle thing in India. But yeah, we are positive. We have been promoting the market, for the last 15 years, and we hope to do that. And again, with a very robust M&V and other policies in place. Thank you. Back to you, Denis.
Thank you, Jayanta. So if the clock is not lying, I think we lost our 15 minutes Q&A period. So I prepared 4 questions for each of the panelists, and rather than take 7 minutes, I'm going to ask you to take 2.5 minutes to answer. Or I have an alternative, and it comes from Alex, but I didn't consult with the organizers, so we can decide what we do. Since I'm from Canada, by the way, and Alex suggested that we could have a special short session on Canada, Mexico, and US. If you want. I don't. Ricardo is in agreement. Okay, my girlfriend told me not to make jokes in conferences, so I knew it was not.
We'll need an extra day for that topic.
Yeah, tomorrow after 3. Okay, so Alex, we'll start with you. When the new Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act was passed in 2019, if you had to identify only one critical factor that made a key difference in enabling ESCO projects, what would that be?
That would be collaboration. I think without the ESCO Association coming together, sharing expertise with government, our law would not have been passed. So the ESCO Association should help the energy ministry in any country bring expertise, make them understand the investment risk, make them understand the value of scaling up and bringing down consumption thresholds of an inclusive policy that would reach all as far down market. You know, many ESCOs are comfortable with corporates, but how do you bring them to mid-market? How do you bring them to local governments? How do you bring them to SMEs? So, and that's the challenge. So I think the big factor or one big takeaway from the Philippine experience is collaboration, role of the ESCO Association to provide the expertise, to provide the economic studies, to help government where government capacities and competencies are lacking.
Excellent, thank you, Alex. Now, David, difficult question. There is currently a lot of economic uncertainty about trade tariffs, which could potentially and significantly impact inflation in general and energy efficiency equipment prices in particular. How can this new reality affect the ESCO business in the US and globally, particularly on paybacks and other related issues?
Yeah, the multi-million-dollar question, potentially. So I guess the reality piece is it's not really a reality yet, and that's part of the challenge is the uncertainty of these potential tariffs related to our key trade partners to date, or some of our key trade partners to date, with Mexico, Canada, China, for a lot of our equipment, and it's putting a lot of our, as I mentioned earlier, it's putting a lot of our projects on hold, and a lot of our vendors don't quite know even what's happening on their supply side of things, and so when we're pricing a projects, as we all know, ESCO projects are not a quick turn development sales cycle. And even though, public customer especially, we're wrapping up an investment grade audit and development, well, you still have to go through city council or board approvals, wrap up financing, all that. So trying to figure out what's going to potentially happen in the next 3 to 6 to 9 months, where it could be a 25% swing on a central plant, or we're doing a $150 million lighting controls project right now, where I just visited the factory in Mexico where the lighting is being made, and the backside of the construction project is going to fall into next year, and so our manufacturer doesn't know what's going to happen, and when it comes across the border and what's going to be imposed. So how do we go tell a customer we don't know, and they don't have $20 million extra sitting around to pay for this delta. So stockpiling is already starting to happen with equipment, and people are just trying to buy as much as possible. Businesses are putting commercials out for things that aren't in our industry necessarily, like televisions, and just saying, beat the 25-30% markups that might be coming. So right now it's the uncertainty. It's a question I got about 20 times last night and a few times more this morning. We don't know, and hopefully things will calm down. We all understand the reasoning behind these tariffs and bringing more industry back to the United States, but it doesn't seem like a foolproof plan, I think, to most Americans. So, not sure that totally answers the question, but some opinions.
Yeah, great, thanks. Now, a question for Ezra. I think I'm going to modify a bit my question because of the presentation by your colleague this morning and yours this afternoon. My question doesn't make a lot of sense now. But in many markets, we see that very often the public sector drives the ESCO market, and eventually spills over into the commercial sector. Here it seems to be the opposite, if I'm not wrong, or if I did not misinterpret what was said this morning. What's your opinion on that? Do you feel that the market in Turkey is driven by the commercial sector or the public sector in the context of their current regulation?
In Turkey, the industry, I guess, the locomotive of this sector, ESCO sector, because it is there is money. When there is money, everybody wants to have the business. So everybody wants to earn. The sector should see this business in the public and in the commercial. I can say about the building sector, if we are talking about, I am an architect, so I am working in the public buildings, in the building sector, so I can, if I talk about the building sector, it is really in the beginning stage, and we have to accelerate this with the best practices, and all public and the private should see the gains and the advantages, and the public has the role to be the leader of this sector, and the public has show, especially in the public sector and the building sector, the advantage, the savings that could be achieved, and in a way, the sector should achieve the financial tools. The main thing is the companies should be supported to have these ESCO contracts, and there is really a big chance for the return of this investment if we can show it properly. And as in the PV, for example, when you look at the public sector, the energy performance contracts are signed to have the PV panels, rooftop or the land type, because the return rate is much shorter. They can see the benefit. So there's a big road, I guess, we have in front of us, and I think, I believe that Turkey will achieve good results.
Great, thank you. Now, Jayanta, a longer question, but you have more time. India has considerable potential for energy efficiency in buildings, manufacturing, and industrial facilities. You mentioned supply-side interventions, subsidies, and taxes in your brief statement. I have not heard comments about energy prices and supply. Is there one specific policy element currently driving interest in ESCO projects? And similarly, is there one key commercial driver, for example, electricity or energy prices?
Well, interesting. So it's, of course, energy price, is a very important factor and has been kind of going up, especially for the industry and the commercial sector. But it's not as simple as that. So there are a couple of factors there. One is, of course, India is still dependent a lot on the fossil fuel, and the generation cost over there is very high. The paradox is that, a lot of the large solar programs and the biddings that happened, I mean, it's happened at even 3 cents, per kilowatt hour. So, but I mean, the overall cost for the industry is going because there is also subsidization happening for agriculture, so obviously the load comes on the commercial side. But the second challenge that's there is the supply constraints. I mean, it is most parts of India still does not have regular power. There are load sheddings, there are frequency issues, because of which a lot of the organizations have to obviously go in for a backup. So in the generator, mostly, say, diesel is a very expensive method. And so there's a lot of ESCO interventions happening on that side as well. But if you really see, I think the hard-to-abate industries, especially, cement, steel, textiles and chemicals, from industry side, yes, they are, of course, very badly hit because of the high energy cost. So you see a lot of action happening, but primarily on the private sector. not really in the public sector, the PSUs. On the building side, again, there's fantastic work that's happening, in hospitals and hotels, and some of the commercial malls and others. There are some really good ESCOs, working in that particular space. I mean, it's a mixed because of the irregular supply, the high cost, and a couple of the regulatory other challenges that comes into India. So I would say it's mixed. So power quality is a bigger problem rather than the cost of energy, I would say.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thanks. Now I have one more question. Since Alex manages time extremely well, he earned himself another question. Now that the law is in place, what policy reforms are still needed for the ESCO market to grow?
Well, there's the all-inclusive comprehensive law will never be the final policy measure that the country will need. We will need to review the measure. We will see where it's weak. Where it's still early days is how do we now have the policy, but how do we enable ESCO procurement in the government sector? So there's still so many barriers. Can the procurement law finally use life cycle cost-based procurement to engage ESCOs? Can the assets be properly transferred according to the government accounting system? Can multi-year contracting be allowed beyond the term of the current government administration? Because many ESCOs need 10, 12, 15, 20 years, but elective cycles are 3 years, 5 years, 4 years. So there's still so many barriers that have to be removed and knocked down. It's a work in progress. So in any country like the Philippines, you have a strong policy measure, but it needs a lot of enhancements and improvements in the years to come.
Great. Would any member of the panel would like to add something? Otherwise, we're going to give our 3 minutes left to my boss and his panel. No? Oh, maybe one question for Saba. We have 3 minutes.
Yes.
Just hold on, Saba.
Have you been trying to do Sharia finance in Turkey, considering that you are 95% Muslim population and the Sharia finance principles actually apply very well to the ESCO contracts?
Sorry, but I couldn't understand this finance.
Hi.
Thank you, by the way.
No. Just a quick note. She asked me to.
Yes, he's my consultant.
Yeah. So the program was supported by World Bank. So the initial phase was like $200 million fund supplied to Ministry of Urbanization and Environment. And there's the second phase right now.
Second phase, yes.
But you are definitely right. They not only Ministry of Environment and Urbanization and also other ministries are also talking with different funds and different sources on getting multi-funded projects to improve the ESCO projects here in Turkey. It's already in Turkey with many of the projects I finance through that way. But in terms of ministry, maybe in the future we can see such references in that area. But this was a pilot project and it's only financed through World Bank and Clean Technology Fund.
Yes, Clean Technology Fund, CTF Fund. And World Bank continues to support us. We finalized the first phase of our energy efficiency in public building. We finalized, although it is the project is completing at the end of 2025. We are ahead of this program, and we have already finalized. And we started the second phase. It is $300 million, and I guess we will get more Yes, Turkey likes funds, credits, loans, so we will get more. But of course, it is not only the getting the loans and the credits, it is the main thing how you are using it in an efficient way, how you can improve the country, and we are trying to do this.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. 4 seconds, 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much.